All right, Trump is threatening to take the Panama Canal. This is the most bizarre back and forth between Trump and the president of Panama. But let's first start off with what Trump has said about the canal recently. Trump spoke at the Turning Point USA convention, and this is what he said.
As another example of the things we're doing and looking at, it's such a terrible thing is happening. The Panama Canal is considered a vital national asset for the United States of America due to its critical role of American economy, the whole world economy, and also national security. The Panama Canal. Has anyone ever heard of the Panama Canal? Because we're being ripped off at the Panama Canal like we're being ripped off everywhere else. A secure, he just said, take it back. That's a good idea. Where do you come from, sir? He doesn't come from Panama. Oh, yeah, good. A secure Panama Canal is crucial for U.S. commerce and rapid deployment of the Navy from the Atlantic all the way to the Pacific. It's an incredible thing, and drastically cut shipping times down to U.S. ports by days and even weeks. The United States is the #1 user of the Panama Canal, with over 72% of all transits heading to or from U.S. ports. Think of that. So we built it. We're the ones that use it. They gave it away. Considered one of the one of the great wonders of the world. The Panama Canal opened for business 110 years ago and was built at huge cost to the United States, and it really is big when you consider the lives and the treasure, the equivalent of $1.2 trillion today. You don't hear those numbers. 38,000 American men, almost all men, they went there to be construction workers and dig. They were diggers, and they were brave. 38,000 men died from infected mosquitoes in the jungles of Panama during the construction period. Think of that. We lost 38,000 men. Teddy Roosevelt was president of the United States at the time of its building and understood the strength of naval power and trade. When President Jimmy Carter foolishly gave it away for $1. During his term in office, it was solely for Panama to manage and not for China or any other country to manage. You see what's going on there? China. It was likewise not given for Panama to charge the United States, its Navy, and its corporations doing business within our country exorbitant prices and rates of passage, which they do. They charge us like it's a disgrace. Our Navy and Commerce have been treated in a very unfair and injudicious way. The fees being charged by Panama are ridiculous, highly unfair, especially knowing the extraordinary generosity that has been bestowed to Panama, I say very foolishly, by the United States. This complete ripoff of our country will immediately stop. It's going to stop. The United States has a big and vested interest in the secure, efficient, and reliable operation of the Panama Canal. And that was always understood when they gave it to Panama. Can you believe that? We would never have done it if we thought what's happening now can happen. And we would never, and we will never, ever let it fall into the wrong hands. But it's falling into the wrong hands. It was not given for the benefit of others by a token of cooperation, but it was given to Panama and to the people of Panama, but it has provisions. You got to treat us fairly, and they haven't treated us fairly. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to the United States of America in full, quickly, and without question. I'm not going to stand for it. So to the officials of Panama, please be guided accordingly.
Okay. He also tweeted a long tweet about this as well. And part of the tweet, he says, the United States has a vested interest in the secure, efficient, reliable operation of the Panama Canal. And that was always understood. We would and will never let it fall into the wrong hands. It was not given for the benefit of others, but merely as a token of cooperation with us and Panama. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to us in full and without question. To the officials of Panama, please be guided accordingly. Okay, this is what the Panama president, this is his response to Trump and his message at TPUSA and also his tweet. Watch this.
I want to express clearly that every square meter of the Panama Canal and its adjacent area belongs to Panama and will remain so. The sovereignty and independence of our country are non-negotiable. The channel is not controlled directly or indirectly by China, the EU, the US, or any other power. I strongly reject any manifestation that distorts this reality. Panama respects other nations and demands respect.
Yeah, okay. So this is all about China. We're going to get to that. But here, Donald Trump responded to the president and he said, we'll see about that. So to the president of Panama responding, saying every square meter of the Panama Canal belongs to Panama and will continue to belong to Panama. Trump saying, we'll see about that. This is a little bit more of the insight into the issue when it comes to China. This was on Fox Business. Watch this.
And Congressman Carlos Jimenez, Republican from Florida, to talk about this and other things. Congressman, is Donald Trump right? Are we being ripped off on the Panama Canal? What do you think?
He very well could be right that we're getting ripped off. But what's most concerning is China's influence on Panama and the Panama Canal Authority. China has a way of trying to either buy or coerce different influencers or politicians to do their bidding. And a couple of years ago, we had concerns and we had reports that some of the members of that Panamanian Canal Authority had in fact been coerced or co-opted by the Chinese Communist Party. And so, yeah, he has legitimate concerns when it comes to the Panama Canal.
Fascinating. Could we take it back? Do you know?
I don't know. I haven't read the fine print, but apparently he has.
Yeah.
And there has to be provisions there that say that they have to treat the United States a certain way. If they've been violating that, then I don't know. Maybe there is. You know, I always take them seriously, even though they may sound a little bit, out there. I always take the president seriously, and it's a legitimate threat to Panama. He wants a better deal, and I think we need to get a better deal from Panama. And also, we need to get rid of Chinese influence on the Panama Canal.
Okay, so this is all about China. This is about the Belt and Road Initiative. This is about stopping China. Let's go over some of the history of the Panama Canal so that we can understand whether or not the United States has any sort of authority to somewhat take it back. So when the Panama Canal was first conceived, Panama was not even a country yet. It was actually part of Colombia. And initially, France came along and said, hey, we would like to build a canal. And this happened in the late 1800s, saying we'd like to build a canal. And Colombia said, okay, we're interested. That sounds interesting. But France ended up coming across financial problems, engineering challenges, and there was a lot of disease. The U.S. then stepped in and negotiated a treaty with Colombia in 1903 to lease the land for the canal. And the Colombian Senate rejected the deal, saying, no, this is going to cede way too much control of our land to you, the foreigners. So the U.S. did what the U.S. does. And the U.S. then provided weapons and support to a Panamanian independence movement. The Panamanian people, which were part of Colombia at the time, rose up and decided to declare Panama an independent nation. And this happened with the support of U.S. troops, support of U.S. weapons. And this was so the United States could come in and build a canal. So after Panama received its independence, largely because of the United States, the U.S. went to work building the canal. And the U.S. paid for it. The U.S. brought in the workers, as Trump mentioned. Many of them died from disease. It was a very difficult project, but it ultimately got done. And there was a treaty that was involved in this. The treaty granted the U.S. a 10-mile wide canal zone in perpetuity in exchange for $10 million upfront, obviously help for the independence movement, as well as a whopping $250,000 annually, which I'm sure back in 1903 or 1910 or whenever this was built was a lot of money. But today, not so much money for that. Ultimately, after many years of the United States controlling the canal, back in there was a uprising in Panama. People started to become uneasy with the U.S. control of the canal. And ultimately, Jimmy Carter did sign away the Panama Canal back to the Panamanian people. Since then, China has leveraged some of the influence over Panama. They have built up quite a relationship with Panama to the point where they invested heavily in the country. They built 2 ports on each side of the canal. They even they invested so much in Panama that Panama actually switched its recognition from Taiwan to Beijing in 2017. And China continued to invest, continue to make friends with Panama, and ultimately has a lot of influence in Panama at the moment and in trying to build their Belt and Road Initiative. This has been pissing off the United States for some time now. So Trump is bringing it up now out in the public. He tends to do that. But I guarantee you, this is a conversation that has been had behind closed doors for quite some time, and not just with the Trump administration, but I'm sure the Biden administration's been having this conversation. I'm sure the Obama administration talked about it a bit. I'm certain, that Panama was starting to cozy up a little bit more to China, but certainly during the first Trump administration, China really started making these sorts of moves. And you could understand why China would do that when there's the trade wars. China's trying to build up its Belt and Road Initiative. And so China started aggressively investing a lot more. And this was under Trump's first term. So I'm sure this conversation has been had quite some time for many years, but now it's coming out publicly, which means it's probably more imminent. He usually only comes out and starts talking about it if he's actually going to do something about it. So my guess is there's going to be some sanctions, some trade war type issues with Panama before it gets to the point of, could the U.S. then take control over the Panama Canal again? I don't think the U.S. actually has any interest or ambition in actually controlling the canal, but I think the U.S. wants to control Panama in order to get the Panamanian people to ensure that the canal is for the United States. So it would be one of those, we're not really controlling it, but we're controlling you. And you have to basically give us the canal, even though we're not going to be here with boots on the ground controlling it. You're going to control it. We're going to pretend like you control it, but we're actually still the boss. Nice little canal you got going on here. Would be a shame if something happened to it. Nice little country that we helped you gain independence. It'd be a shame if something happened to it, right? So it's kind of that sort of threat that I think that he's making towards Panama. Now, China has already started to counteract this. China has already announced that they're going to be trying to build a new canal in Nicaragua. That's going to be interesting for the Nicaraguan people. China, obviously, Nicaragua does not have a great relationship with the United States. And so that's, an interesting place for China to select, because they're thinking, all right, this is a country that already has the outs with the U.S., so there would be more amenable. Nicaragua's looking to China for some help in supporting itself against the United States. But this also could spell doom and gloom for Nicaragua if the United States gets really threatened. If the U.S. feels really threatened with this new canal that China is planning on building through Nicaragua, I think we would see regime change in Nicaragua and a lot of instability in Nicaragua. Sorry to my producer, Ben, who is controlling all the buttons right now for the show. I'm sure he's freaking out a little bit because he lives there. But yeah, that is a serious threat for the United States. The U.S. doesn't want China to build their Belt and Road Initiative, and they've done everything they possibly can in order to stop it from a lot of suspicious activity regarding the Belt and Road. I suspect that it was actually when the Beirut port blew up and they claimed it was fireworks. Fireworks don't really create a nuclear-sized explosion like that it really looked like that was more of a warning shot to China, who had just signed a Belt and Road Initiative agreement with Lebanon. And we've seen that throughout all of Southeast Asia, throughout Africa, where they put the Belt and Road Initiative. Suddenly, as soon as China announces a Belt and Road Initiative, interestingly, in that part of the world, guess what pops up? ISIS, right? ISIS pops up in all of these countries randomly from the Middle East. ISIS suddenly ends up in Africa, or it's an ISIS group, ISIS-like group or ISIS-affiliated group, suddenly starts popping up all over Africa, where the Belt and Road, right along the Belt and Road Initiative, and starts to pop up in Asia, right where the Belt and Road Initiative is planned. And of course, we're seeing coups and instability and sanctions, all with countries that, interestingly, China has set up for Belt and Road Initiative. So this would be another attempt at halting that Belt and Road Initiative. And the United States is not playing when it comes to this. The U.S. will do everything and anything to stop that Belt and Road Initiative. That includes war. That includes exporting ISIS. That includes regime change. So I think Trump is serious when he's talking about taking back the Panama Canal. But I don't think that's going to solve the problem if China's building a new canal through Nicaragua. I don't know how long it will take them to build that, but the Chinese have been working very quickly at building a lot of stuff. They've been able to do it very quickly. So who knows how fast they would actually be able to build it. And if they do, I spell trouble for Nicaragua, unfortunately, in that. And I think we're just going to see what happens. But I think Panama doesn't want to be the first to collapse or the first to have a regime change or instability in their country. I think they will cede to the United States, especially now that China is building a canal somewhere else. And then we'll see the instability and the regime change and those types of more military efforts, I think, happen in Nicaragua. Unfortunately, Ben, just letting you know. I know that's not good news. You don't want to hear that. I'm sorry, buddy. Merry Christmas. Oh, happy Hanukkah. All right. So that is the issue with the Panama Canal. I do think that he's serious. And yeah. All right. Let's move on with the show. Oh, and by the way, Trump has also been talking about Greenland and Canada, right? So he's also been mentioning Greenland and buying Greenland. He mentioned this in his first term. And he's also mentioned it more recently, kind of brought it up like, is Greenland for sale? And a lot of people laugh and scoff about that. Greenland is actually Denmark's territory. It's an autonomous zone of Denmark. And no, it is not for sale. And Canada is not interested in becoming the 51st state. But what's interesting about that's not just posturing of like, yeah, I want to take more land because I got some bright ideas from those Zionists that have been paying me $100 million. I mean, maybe he's got those bright expansionist ideas from them, but it's mostly strategic. And again, it's to stop the Belt and Road Initiative. Greenland is also a strategic area for the Chinese Arctic route of their Belt and Road Initiative. So when Trump is saying he wants Greenland and he wants to buy Greenland, that is to control that Arctic Belt and Road route. Canada, that has more to do with a trade war, a tariff trade war, when he's kind of threatening Canada, saying, well, we can make you a 51st state. If you don't like the tariffs, we're going to slap on you. But he's very serious about these trade wars, about these tariffs, and a lot of them have to do with China. They root back to China with what kind of deal is China making. So whenever there's some sort of a threat, like with Greenland, or there's a joke about Canada, or he's talking about the Panama Canal, or he's talking about other areas of the world, always look at the news and find out, what has China been talking about? What has China been doing? What sort of moves have they been making with China? And you usually connect a dot there, and it usually all roads go back to the Belt and Road Initiative and trying to stop it. Thanks for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show. If you want to watch the full show, visit KimIversonShow.com. The show airs every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Again, it's KimIversonShow.com. See you there.